Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, here with my wonderful friend Tom Jensen. Sometimes when I press go for live, it like does like a little countdown, and sometimes it just goes and you're talking. So if I seemed a little startled, it was one of those just go talking times. But we have an incredible, just an awesome game. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, Brock Purdy, and the 49ers advance to the divisional round after a very, in my opinion, shocking game and win yesterday. So I'm here with my friend Tom to be able to recap that 23-19 game, talk a lot about that, give our game balls, and then also probably talk a little bit about the Seahawks game that is too close for comfort, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know Tom will give us a better.
Apparently, what the NFL does is if you're the 1 seed, you get the Saturday games. That's what they've been doing since 2021. That was reported yesterday. So that's why is that it's an automatic for the league.
Why?
I thought it was because of ratings, but this is the way they do it. Is that if you're the 1 seed, you get the Saturday games, and so that's why the Niners get stuck on a Saturday, even though it's unfair to them.
I heard, and I'm sure that's right, but I heard it was one of those podcasts that like players do, not the Richard Sherman one. This is not important. I thought maybe I'd be able to very quickly pull it up. Anyways, I saw a podcast from a former, actually Eagles player, who does like recaps and stuff. And he was saying with the games that just happened for Wild Card Weekend, Papa J says, "Where's Leroy?" I forgot to tell him I'm going live, so hopefully he gets a notification. He said for Wild Card Weekend, there's all the different TV networks got to bid on what games they wanted.
Right.
And whoever was the highest bidder. And apparently the 49ers were one of the highest most bid teams. And that's why the 49ers ended up on Fox. But and
yeah, that can be, but the history says that it's the 1 seeds get Saturday. So if that's automatic for the league, that's why that happened. But yeah, I understand Kyle saying, wait a minute. And I understand the team saying, come on, guys. But the league does what the league does. And they're never going to do any favors to teams on the West Coast. It's not the way it works.
49er Poker says it's not guaranteed that number 1 seed gets Saturday because Monday night.
I forgot about the Monday night game this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, through history, though, there are a lot of people that commented on it yesterday that if you're the 1 seed, you get Saturday. And that's the way the league prefers to do it. But yeah, you're right, Poker, because the Monday game this time, that could change things. But
yeah,
that's why the Niners got Saturday.
For people who don't, because we kind of just got right into it. And by the way, there's lots to be positive about. But it was announced last night that the 49ers, when they play the Seahawks, are going to be playing on Saturday. I don't think we have the official time slot if it's 3 or 5 yet. But is that correct?
I think it's the later game, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Regardless, it's just there was no way the Niners were going to get the Sunday game, because if it wasn't the 1 seed getting Saturday, then it's Chicago and LA with the number 2 and number 3 TV markets is going to get the Sunday game anyway. Well, so there's no way the Niners were going to get Saturday regardless.
Yeah. What Tom's explaining is it's not at all about fairness, but in my opinion, it should be about fairness. And because the 49ers get screwed. The Seahawks already had a week. And to be fair, if they would have won, they would have been in this situation. So they were in control of their own destiny.
Yeah.
You could say the NFL screwed them, but you could also say they screwed themselves by putting themselves in this position. But basically now the 49ers have to play on a short week. They had to fly back. They didn't get home until early this morning in the AM, last night, this morning, whatever you want to call that. But they had to fly across from the East Coast, and now they're going to be, usually they have like a league national or a league-wide NFL Tuesday is an off day. The 49ers are going to have to practice on that day. We know in previous weeks, the 49ers, when they played on Saturday, they didn't go through their full practices. They did walkthroughs That was not good for them.
They learned from the Seattle game they can't do that again.
So I think they're going to have to press their bodies and participate because, as Tom just said, they looked like they didn't practice all week. But there's obviously a balance because when you just played in a game, it's hard to push yourself 100% and then be ready to play on the Saturday. And the reason that a lot of people are upset about this is the games that are going to be played on Sunday, they already played on Saturday. So it would have been more quote unquote fair for them to play on Saturday because then each of the teams, aside from the team that got the bye week, would have had 7 days.
Well, that's something for the NFL Players Association to address in the next collective bargaining agreement, is try to get fair rest time for teams.
Yeah.
In dealing with stuff like this in scheduling. It shouldn't be where you're the 1 seed, you get Saturday, or you're the highest TV market, therefore you get the Sunday game. It should be trying to make the games as fair as possible, I think, just for the sake of competitive balance, that both teams should get equal rest.
SU Scotty says that 3 games in 15 days is wild. I agree, but what I want to say, and I think it's fair, we're fans, for us to acknowledge that this is not fair. But I was talking to my partner last night about this, and I was like, Kyle Shanahan needs to not adopt this mindset, because when they scored 3 points against Seattle, he came out after that press conference, and one of the first things he said was, we've had 3 games in 13 days and blah, blah, blah. It felt like his mindset going into that game was like, we're getting screwed. This isn't fair. And you talked about it, by the way. I got a shout out in Tom's article that he posted today, which was awesome for me to read. But I talked a lot about within the matchup between Philly and the 49ers. On paper, the Eagles just had clearly the more talented roster. I would say they had one of the more talented offenses out of any of the offenses that were left in the NFL. And then specifically comparing it to the 49ers, who just all of their starters and stars are out at this point. They're on 4th and 5th string guys. Matchup on paper, it was no question. But what I said was like vibes were rancid and horrendous in Philadelphia. And we'll get into that. That ended up being what cost them. But the 49ers, I would say the intangible thing that made them win was their unity, was their belief in each other, the resilience to adversity that they've built up all year. But right. I think this team goes how Kyle Shanahan goes. So, Scotty, I totally get your comment, and we're fans, so we can talk about this. But I do hope that Kyle Shanahan doesn't approach this week, and I don't think he will. Knock on wood. I don't know him. But I hope, even if he feels screwed, that doesn't come across to the players, because like I said,
project confidence.
He made that a big deal for the week 18 game. He talked about it leading up to the week 18 game. And then immediately following that loss, it was one of the first things he mentioned in his pressers. And I just have to think, with how impactful his emotional pull to this team has been, which is, by the way, been a huge positive. I'm not trying to be negative, but I think it can also be negative. When Kyle Shanahan feels good and feels like they can do it, they seem to trust that. But when he doubts them or he starts, I don't want them to let that take over. So, but I want to get into the game. Should I read some more chats first, or get into some more of our comments? We got a ton of people watching and commenting, so I really appreciate you guys. But lot to get to. Someone said Mac Jones needs to come in. You got to calm down. It's not for today. You can't.
No.
There's some days that you're allowed to say, we want Mac, fire Kyle, and it's not after they win a divisional game against one of the best.
Yeah, pick your spots. This isn't the time for that.
Tom, let's get into recapping the game a little bit. It was just yesterday, so I don't think we need to, feel moved on from it. And I haven't heard your thoughts. In my opinion, kind of a tale of two halves. I was pretty furious with this offense, at least in the first half. The defense really hung in there. It felt like in the first half, the discrepancy in points should have been way higher. But like I said, Philly's offense was outdueling the 49ers for who could be more horrendous. AJ Brown was trying to fight his coach in the first quarter. Literally, when I say vibes, Brock Purdy was like throwing the ball to the other team. Kendrick Bourne didn't know where to get lined up. And our team had more faith and more belief in each other than Philadelphia, who had all these stars and were literally winning. And the number one wide receiver was like trying to fight the coach in the sideline in the first quarter while they were winning. It was like, dude, you do not need to be this mad right now. It actually reminded me of the 49ers. I think back to the most viral moment where this was happening, that Tampa Bay game that the 49ers were at the time winning, and Deebo Samuel punches his teammate for like missing a field goal. And it's just like, football, not everything is going to go how you hope to. It's like, there's going to be mistakes in football. It's who can minimize it, who can have the least mistakes, and who can do the most things correct. And I didn't think the 49ers won this game, in my opinion, in explosive plays, which they haven't done all year. They lost the turnover battle. They didn't hold the time of possession. They weren't running the ball well, and it didn't matter. Tom, what was your reaction throughout the game? I will say drive one. I keep asking you and then interrupting you. The very first offensive drive went about as well as you could have imagined. But from then on, at first I was like, okay, maybe it'll be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. But after that first drive for both teams, there was kind of some stalls that happened. And just how are you feeling in the first half and then at the end of the game?
One thing that Kyle has done consistently is score on that opening script drive. And he always seems to have a new angle where he can say, we can attack these guys this way. And the way he did that in this game was he went after Quinyon Mitchell, which is something no one would expect him to do. This is the all-pro cover corner for Philly, all-pro. And he's throwing at him with success. I mean, that opening drive, he went right after Mitchell, 3 for 3, 74 yards and a touchdown, all of them against Mitchell. Unbelievable. And you just say, whoa, how do they do this? Part of it is they're taking advantage of Mitchell's aggression. Part of it is they know he can't pick the ball, but he's a great cover guy. And part of it is Philly had the worst starter on the field, their safety, Greg Blankenship. Blankenship, bad. And what Kyle is really good at is identifying the weakness you have. And this is something Bill Walsh did. He would identify what your weakness is and kill you with it. And that's what Kyle did in that opening drive. He said, where's Blankenship? And just targeted him. It's the touchdown pass by Juwan Jennings. That's Greg Blankenship blowing coverage assignment. There were 2 touchdowns that were directly attributable to Blankenship.
Okay.
And that's Kyle. He's going after the weak link on their defense and destroying them with it. So I love that opening script drive. But it's common for Kyle and the Niners to then not follow that up with another score. They need to catch their second wind, and that's what it took.
How the 49ers come out, they score immediately, but then the Eagles also score. How are you feeling like at that moment when the 49ers get the ball back and they don't score on that next drive?
I figured that was normal. That I thought that what would happen is that the momentum would swing in the opposite direction, and that they would either need a turnover or a 3 and out or something to get a stop, or to just catch their second win and move the ball on offense. So Philly going up 13-7 was concerning, but not unexpected, because the defense has to adjust. But then over time, once the defense starts to see how Philly is going about this, they can adjust and get better, and they did. One of the keys for the defense was that Kendricks and Wallow played phenomenally well. And you've got to give them a ton of credit that here's some vets that they sign off the street, couch free agents, haven't been with the team for more than a month, and they're the key players of the game on defense. that Kendricks played every defensive snap. Wallow played all but one, and 11 tackles, 10 tackles, tops in the team. Kendricks makes the tip away to end the game. They were phenomenal. And you got to give, that's a veteran stepping up, and that's part of this team's culture this year is next man up. They embody that. Yes. And you saw that in this game. Kendricks, Wallow, Siegel,
I was going to say
DeMarcus Robinson, all four of those guys stepped up huge. And you can't go into it and say, okay, you're going to win a playoff game because of Eric Kendricks, Garrett Wallow, Marquez Siegel, and DeMarcus Robinson. What?
Not something.
If I told you that at the beginning of the year, you'd laugh at me and point and say, what are you doing? You're on drugs. And that's how they won. And that's a testament to the players involved, keeping their heads in the game, developing their game, even when they're not playing. And it's a testament to the coaching staff that Saleh, and give a lot of credit also to Johnny Holland, the linebackers coach, who is one of the best linebacker coaches in the league, if not the best, had them ready. And they played just an incredible game.
We had a chat all week long that said, watch out, Wallow's going to make a huge difference. And he did. Person was joking, but he absolutely did. A guy that you briefly mentioned while we're going over game balls, some people have been asking all season long, like, why doesn't this guy get more play? Brown went down, Siegel came in and did heroic in Brown's spot. How did you feel about Marquise Siegel being in there? I think these little changes to the secondary made a big difference.
Huge, because his speed is what changes. And going into this game, that's what I was most worried about, was the speed disadvantage. So Jair goes down, Siegel comes in, and you're getting a guy, Brown runs a 4.65-40 and Siegel runs 4.37. And you saw that on the field right away, that Siegel was out there coming from the opposite side of the field to make tackles. And that wouldn't happen if that was Jair. And it does happen because it's Siegel.
Yeah,
that's the difference speed can make.
I don't think it was A.J. Brown. It was the other wide receiver, but he broke up what would have been a really nice long touchdown from Jalen Hurts in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. It was pretty beautiful, and it was like, wow, okay, this guy, he's going to make a difference. A guy who's not a veteran, who definitely deserves to get mentioned, Kyle Shanahan gave him a little bit of props last night, was Upton Stout. He's had the most spunk and been the most impactful defensive player, one of the most impactful defensive players so far all season. Feels like he's really brought it. De'Amon Lenoir got a little bit burned in the first quarter for his over-aggressiveness, but then really made up for it in the second half, I would say. How did you feel about Lenoir?
I thought Lenoir was okay. I don't think he was great.
I saw him get burned in that first quarter, but I didn't.
Well, the first possession where he doesn't maintain the edge.
Yeah.
And Saquon just runs open field because Lenoir didn't know his assignment. Part of it with Lenoir is that he was playing as if he had the normal linebackers behind him. And he has to adjust his game when you've got Kendricks and Wallow, and he didn't do it. And so that play is why they got burned. And Saquon has that big run, and that was on Lenoir. He made some coverage mistakes. I don't think Lenoir played one of his better games, but they got the job done. A.J. Brown didn't hurt him. And when A.J. Brown was open and the game was on the line, he dropped it. So Lenoir got off the hook thanks to A.J. And it's an interesting thing that you're one of the worst divas in the league. You're always complaining about this or that. A.J. Brown is friends with Debo and Ayuk, and all of them are diva trio. And then he drops the ball.
That same agent too, if I'm not wrong. I remember that being a big thing, that they were like all up for a contract extension in the same year, and like all of them tried to request a trade and everything. And it was just like, Jesus, guys.
Okay. But yeah, it's just, you had the moment to win the game and you blew it. I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, Stout, he's the rookie of the year, no question. And he has stepped up. I would say that second half of the year, he's shown a lot of growth and a lot of confidence. That play on fourth down in the first quarter where he jumps the route and gets the deflection on Devontae Smith to stop the Eagles on downs was a huge play. And it reflects the confidence that Stout's playing with now. He's their best cover. He's their best cover player.
Absolutely. I want to go to game balls on offense. I think I'll give one and then you give one. I want to do, and you kind of mentioned him when you were talking about the veterans, but Robinson, he got a ton of hype this offseason. If you remember during camp and even
in camp, he was really good.
I went to a couple practices. When I was there, he was working with Mac Jones. But he looked like one of the bigger, faster guys on the field. And this was in a practice, like not everyone's going all out. But it seemed like he was going to be one of those guys that was like a training camp warrior, because then through 18 weeks, he's done nothing. He has a breakout game in this week and just absolutely goes off. And they needed him to, with Ricky Pearson not playing, obviously Kittle going down. I'm sure he was a huge part of the game script. We can talk about Kyle Juszczyk, who I do think also deserves some credit for filling in.
He was clutch. Kittle went down and Juszczyk made some big catches. That 27-yard play was big.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought Demarcus Robinson for 6 catches for 111 yards. And it's one of those things like going into the game, I didn't pick the Niners because you're not going to go, I think Demarcus Robinson is going to go up. Like, that's not something.
Yeah. How can you do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when, not to preview it, but they're going to need bodies, hands, someone to catch the ball when it comes to the Seahawks game. So hopefully this was not just a one-off game. I'm nervous it might be, and we'll talk about Ricky Pearsall and stuff as the week goes on. But yeah, my first offensive game ball goes to Demarcus Robinson, and then I gave a little shout out to Kyle Juszczyk. Do you want to talk about another guy who's maybe one of the more important guys on the team?
Well, I thought that Brock, even with those 2 interceptions, showed a lot of poise. Yeah. That the offense wasn't working. Kittle went down, and so the team was emotionally hit. The running game was nowhere.
Yeah.
And then you get to that final drive, and you say they've got to get it done here. And preferably they have to score a touchdown, not just kick a field goal.
Yes.
To then get that done. Brock on that drive, you've got 10 plays, 66 yards. Brock goes 5 for 7. One of them is a throwaway on one of the most important throwaways of the game.
Yeah.
I saw that. Philly had Zach Baum unblocked, blitz, and Brock did a great job of getting the ball out and getting it away.
Yeah.
And that's personal growth for Brock. That's something he wouldn't have been able to do prior to the Carolina game. And now he's able to do that in the playoffs, and it's one of the most important plays he makes, and it's an incompletion. So really, I treat that as a really high positive play for Brock.
I think in that same sequence, right before the throwaway, he also had a scramble. I hope I'm talking about the same. He also had a scramble, and I thought the same thing, where it looked for a second, because sometimes when Brock scrambles, he'll scramble out to the side. He doesn't necessarily go forward and try to buy time. And then the TV broadcast shows that no one's open. And we've seen that happen before, where Brock Purdy's like, I don't care, I'm still throwing it. But instead, last minute, he tucks it and runs forward for the first down. And I remember because he had just thrown, the second interception, and I was like, we just need more of that. Like, just
it's easier to say that than do it, though.
Yeah,
because
5 yards, moving the sticks, not taking a sack, like not being like, I just turned it over 2 times. We need to score immediately. I got to throw it 20 yards down the field. Oh, now it's another interception. Like the fact that he just get 3 more downs. If you just and like you said, a couple plays later, he threw it away, and it was like, no, actually, that was the perfect thing to do right there.
Yeah, Well, it was one of the most important plays of the drive, was to throw that ball away. The interceptions came when the defense was right on top of Brock, that he had to throw the ball higher to get it over the defensive lineman, and so he couldn't have seen where he was throwing the ball, and I think that contributed to the interceptions. So we'll see how that goes against Seattle. But it's important for Brock in this game, especially because Philadelphia isn't very good at containing a quarterback to then run and scramble out of the pocket. And Brock picked his spots well.
Yes.
He was also very adept at escaping by going forward, which was surprising sometimes, because you think of Philadelphia coming with their great defensive tackles that they would collapse the pocket on Brock. And he still found ways, gaps to go through. The touchdown pass to McCaffrey on the Texas cross was Brock going forward to escape the pressure and then throwing against his body to hit Christian. That was a huge play.
Tom, it was so funny. When you were just talking about like navigating the pocket a little bit, that's exactly what came into my head. Like, in order to make that final touchdown that, ended up sealing the game for the 49ers and winning it, Brock Purdy had excellent pocket navigation where he slides to the side a little bit, then slides forward up out of the way of pressure to give himself enough time just to set his feet to throw the ball and to give Christian McCaffrey enough time to get over and get open. And it was beautiful. I mean, he played it, and that's why you put him in the game ball section. It seems weird that we're talking so highly after 2 interceptions, but to be able to come after those interceptions and make, like, we pointed out, multiple good, safe choices, and then also not collapse on yourself in the final drive when you need to get a touchdown. Look at the other side of the ball. Like, I thought, I was like, I didn't think Philly was going to be able to score another touchdown. I thought if they got the ball back, they would maybe kick a field goal or something. But it just felt so difficult for them to do anything. And it was really cool to be on the other side for the Niners to feel like, oh, they have a shot, and I think they're going to be able to go down and put it in the end zone. And by the way, and Kendrick Bourne, my dad's a Kendrick Bourne fan. He pissed me off because not only did he cost them the timeout and not line up correctly and not know where he was supposed to be at before the half, on that final touchdown, I don't know if you go back and watch the broadcast booth again, Juwan Jennings and Brock Purdy are screaming at Kendrick Bourne on that play with the Texas to the end of throwing Christian McCaffrey, screaming at Kendrick Bourne. Right. Hey, dude, he put out like a Christian rap album this week, and he's always doing TikToks and shit. And I love to do a TikTok and to do a silly little dance. And I think there's something to bringing levity to a team. You got to know your position before you, like, number one, know your assignment, know what you're supposed to do, then joke around. And Kendrick Bourne's been real cute all year with his little jokes, but they can't have those issues in Seattle, because a big reason they were able to overcome those issues in Philly was Philadelphia's offense was crumbling itself. And so they're not going to be able to turn the ball over 2 times, get delay of games, waste all their timeouts. Like, the clock management, it's so good that they won this game, because the narrative is like, they were bad, but they overcame. And it's this like victory story that's actually the hardships make the story look better. But if they would have lost, we would have been going in on these exact little the little details that you get wrong as a player. I mean, you've been with the team all year. Come on now, dude. You should know where you're supposed to line up on that play. Yeah. But Kyle will remember things like that. It's when you miss those kinds of details, you tend not to see the field. So we'll see what happens with Bourne, but that kind of stuff doesn't help your cause any. Let's put it that way. I get really frustrated when the team burns a lot of timeouts unnecessarily, especially in a tight game. And in these games in the playoffs where they're all going to be tight, you need every timeout. You can't afford to just waste one because a player doesn't know where to line up, or Brock can't hear the play, or the play comes in too late. There's all those things that factor into why you end up running clock. They have to play clean. They have to. So, we'll see. But the important thing is that somehow, some way, they got this done. Yes. My dad, who loves Bourne, is saying it's not on Bourne. Bourne in the locker room said it was on him. Like, he took accountability for it. It was on him. Yeah, he knew. He knew. It was there was no one else. Like, they literally stopped the play and were like screaming at him to get lined up. It happened.
Yeah, well,
twice.
it happens. It happens.
Yes.
You can just brain fart and boom. But to do that in that situation is really tough. But, I don't care about the TikTok videos and all that stuff. It's just in the moment, you need to be able to play within yourself and know where you're supposed to be. And if you don't, you shouldn't play.
Another guy that I want to highlight really quick, because I was thinking ahead and I was going to talk a little bit about guys who can get open versus guys who can't against man and the Seahawks. But then I had to stop myself. Another guy that I think we need to give a huge game ball to. And it's interesting because going into the halftime, the 49ers were averaging 1.8 yards per carry. I think by the end of the game, Christian was averaging like 3.1. So didn't do great on the ground at all. But Christian McCaffrey made up for 41% of the 49ers offense as a whole. He was running the ball. He was catching the ball. He was a receiver. He was catching touchdowns from Brock Purdy. He was catching touchdowns from Juwan Jennings, which, by the way, that's another, I guess, game balls is for Kyle and the cojones to do that trick play right there. But yeah, well, I just want to shout out.
Turns out Clay Kubiak made that call.
Yeah. You're right. He said that they should call it there. But I just want to say a moment. Shout out Christian McCaffrey for a moment. Production wise on the ground, his numbers are not as impressive as they've been in the past. But with the amount of work that they're putting on him, I think he's been the only constant, right? Now, at this point, Trent Williams has missed a game. Brandon Ayuk has not played a game. Kittle missed multiple games to start the year. Now is out, which my prayers go to him. We'll talk about that in a second. Kendrick Bourne, in and out. Juwan Jennings, in and out. Even though I know Jennings has really showed out the last second half of the season. But since week one, Chris McCaffrey has been on the 49ers offense doing all of the receiving and all of the rushing, basically. For the majority of the season, he was their number one rusher and receiver. And 41% is a lot to put on one guy. He's touching the ball basically as much as Brock Purdy is. And because he's a running back, he doesn't get that same hype. But for, when they talk about like MVPs or whatever, I don't think his numbers live up to what you need to do that. But for what he does for this team, think about it. They've lost every single star possible, and they're in the divisional game. And a lot of that is the coaching this year has been outmatched. Like, they've really outdone themselves. But last year, they were in a very similar situation when it came to injuries. The only difference was the guy that was injured was Christian McCaffrey, and the other stars were there. And all the other stars put together could not replicate the amount of production and, like, stability that, I don't know if it's Kyle, Brock, whatever, but that Christian McCaffrey brings to this team. I have to give him a shout out for, just
Absolutely.
being the Iron Man and really being there for the 49ers this year, especially coming off such a catastrophic injury last year. And I just think the juxtaposition, I don't know how to say that word,
juxtaposition.
Yes. Seeing, the team without him last year versus with him this year, and that being like a main factor, and kind of being able to isolate that with the years being back to back, you really see how much he does for this team.
Yeah, he keeps the team on the rails offensively.
Yeah.
He centers them, he focuses them, he grounds them. And, 41% of the offense is amazing. They had a stat that they said during the game where Christian had, I think it's 413 touches on the year. That's franchise record. It's the most touches that any player has had, any non-quarterback has had, in 11 years. That's how much Christian is carrying this team right now and how much Kyle is depending upon him. And while Christian didn't have the production on the ground, and he hasn't for most of the year, 2 touchdowns. And that touchdown catch on the pass from Juwan, phenomenal job by Christian of adjusting to the ball. Yeah. And Brady said this during the broadcast, that if you throw the ball high, the wind is going to carry it. And Juwan threw a meteor ball because he had to. He's not a quarterback. He's not going to line drive the ball. So he looped it into Christian. The wind took it. Christian was expecting the ball to come inside. he adjusts for the ball going outside, brings his hands outside to make the catch against his body, and caught the ball. An amazing catch. Orlovsky on ESPN said there are top wide receivers in the league who can't make that catch, and Christian McCaffrey can. And that speaks to his ability. Now, Christian has said that he's been willing to become a slot receiver next year. That play shows, and his production throughout the year as a pass receiver and throughout his career has shown that he could do that. He's fully capable of doing that. But that was an amazing play by Christian.
Yeah.
And Juwan. And give everybody credit on that one, that they really set that up well, timed it perfectly. It was the right call at the right time, and bang.
Can I ask you a question? Because I saw some people saying that last week when they called the play for Sky Moore, it was actually setting up that play. Can you explain maybe why?
Yeah.
You don't know
yeah.
that?
Well, and this was again.
Just for people who I know we kind of went meta. We're talking about the touchdown that Juwan Jennings threw to Christian McCaffrey. They did something similar in the Super Bowl where Jennings threw a touchdown to Christian McCaffrey. Also, a couple seasons ago, I forget who it was, but Did Debo throw the touchdown to Christian McCaffrey? So they've done these trick plays before, but last week they had a weird play with Sky Moore that did not work, and people kind of like, what? Where did that come from? But on the broadcast, I heard some people saying that was actually setting up for this week, and I just
and there was a play, 2 plays prior to that. They had the jet sweep to Sky Moore, and Orlovsky broke this down on ESPN also, and it was brilliant. Check it out on Twitter. It's a really good breakdown.
Okay.
He showed that Sky Moore takes the jet sweep, and the defense reacts to him in such a degree. All the defense goes with Moore.
Got it.
And there's no defense protecting the backside. Kyle then takes note of that, flips it, and then you've got another jet sweep to Moore. He flips to Juwan. The defense is all going left,
and that's what
McCaffrey is alone right, and Juwan hits him. Okay, why? Blankenship. And that's where Kyle comes in. I know where your weakness is. And that's what he exploited. Yeah. Is that it was sort of a double whammy of sorts of, I'm going to play into the tendencies you showed 2 plays ago, and I'm going to target your worst player.
Yeah.
And that's Kyle at his best. That's when Kyle proves that he's one of the best play callers in the league. Stuff like that. The play design, and then, and Kubiak called it. And so, props to Clay. But they also had that in their bag ready to go, and they picked the perfect time to do it.
I loved it. And I also liked, I think Grant pointed this out, but you did a good job because I gave Kyle credit for it right when I first brought it up, and he said, no, it's Kubiak. And I want to shout out Kyle. A lot of coaches, I think they don't like to kind of say, oh no, this wasn't my idea. Cause it's like, it's important for their own self-preservation to make themselves look like the smartest guy in the room. But Kyle did a good job after this game. And this is just more of an analysis on a person. It's so funny, the dichotomy that we get with Kyle. After wins, I feel like he can be so generous with answers. He's like, people can ask about injuries. They can ask about tell me the name of that play and exactly how you executed it. And he'll literally give you part of the game plan to explain it. He seems eager. Something that he did that I wanted to give him credit for was he credited Kubiak for being the one to say, hey, we should call that right here. So he didn't even take that credit for himself. But it's just funny because that's how he is after wins. And I've noticed this throughout the week too. He'll be much more generous with reporters, but after losses, it feels like he's just on the defensive. Any question he interprets, how could this make me look bad? So I'm going to give you as little information as possible. Maybe it's more just human instinct thing to do.
Yeah. I can say as a reporter that's been in the locker room before after losses, that's a cultural thing in football. After you lose, you don't want to recount everything that happened. You don't want to relive it.
I guess that makes sense.
And so people come back and say, you failed. You failed. What do you have to say? Get out of my face. That's what I have to say. So it's just, it's a natural human response, and it's part of football to do that. I mean, I've had to ask questions of, I'll bring up an example of this. The game where Roger Craig got his 1,000 against Dallas. Niners lost that game. Part of why was because they had problems in the secondary, and asked Ronnie Lott about it, and said that you had to rotate coverage to cover the weakness with Nixon, and he just gave me a look of just 6 feet under. Just, I'm not responding to what you're doing. I'm going to support my teammates. So that's part of it too, is that not only is it negative and they don't want to deal with it, they also want to circle the wagons and protect their own. And that's part of it too. So Kyle as a coach is going to protect his team in addition, just like Ronnie protected his teammates in the secondary, where Torrey Nixon got fried, and Ronnie Lott's not going to say, yeah, I did. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So it's a natural human response.
Before we get in, because I think we talked, should really quick. There's so much positive. So we're still not on to Seattle. Can you really quickly explain to me? I know that Kyle Shanahan was on your game balls. Was Robert Saleh in your game balls? And if not, can
you oh, absolutely, because that's smoke and mirrors. And as we talked about earlier, the key to the entire game was getting those linebackers to play, and those guys stepped up and played the game of their lives. Kendricks and Wallow, can you point to a game more important where they played that well? No. Kendricks playing every defensive snap, Wallow playing everyone except for one play. Yeah. And Wallow has 11 tackles. Kendricks has 10. Kendricks makes the game-winning play. And that's all Saleh and Johnny Holland, and all credit to them. And that's going to be critical in the Seattle game. Is you have to get better linebacker play than they did 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And those guys might be part of the key to how. So we'll get into that when we talk about the Seahawks game.
I wanted to say, Rick Diaz came in the chat. He said, first of all, he said, what's up to us? Happy about the win. But then he said, obviously sad about George Kittle. I wanted to give an update. Kyle Shanahan did not talk today. During the regular season, he always has a Monday phone call with the media. But I think with these Saturday games, I think they like to talk to the media as little as possible. And I think when rules are a little bit confusing because days are different, if they don't feel like they absolutely have to get on a call, they're not going to get on a call, which I don't blame them. I think a lot of that also just has to do with like they feel like their time is probably more effective on the game plan or whatever. So after the game, this is not an update from today, but we'll get to that. Kyle Shanahan said that the trainers knew before the card even got out there that George Kittle did tear his Achilles. There's also an article, if you look up George Kittle Achilles, although at this point it might be buried at the very bottom. But before this game, George Kittle was receiving stem cell therapy for Achilles tendinosis, which I guess is a little bit different than tendonitis. But it was like some doctor in Tennessee that's like promoting, it was like a promotion for his business. And George Kittle was saying that he has tendinosis, which is like very micro tears in your Achilles that can weaken your Achilles. And apparently he's had it for years, and he's been getting these stem cells with it. I think most athletes probably have some version of this at,
body maintenance work, basically, on stuff like that. And keep in mind, it's a Tennessee doctor because George lives in Nashville in the offseason.
Got it. But yeah, so all that to say, he did, Kyle confirmed that he did tear his Achilles. What really sucks, I mean, it sucks in general, but because for the rest of the year, for the 49ers moving on, when we talk about the matchup with the Seahawks, George Kittle would have been really important. Winning the Super Bowl, you feel like you definitely can't do that without George Kittle. Obviously, that's ahead of time. I don't even think they're going to beat the Seahawks, but for all those reasons, it sucks. Also, he's under contract with the 49ers, I think until 2028. He's on the later end of his career already. And because it's not like, you'd rather, if you're going to suffer a career-ending injury, have it happen earlier in the season, because then it's like, okay, you're out this season. Because
so you don't go into 2026.
It's going to be like a Fred Warner situation where they're like, maybe if the 49ers go to the divisional round next year, like George Kittle's not going to play I mean, maybe there's miracles. Seems like every single year the rehab gets different, but
yeah, something like this, he'll probably play like second half of the year next year at the earliest. So it would be like Malik Mustafa basically is, around week 7, week 8, something like that.
Yeah,
would be a similar timeline, but Mustafa's a lot younger, so we'll see. But when that happened, my heart went out for Kittle. Is just here's the ultimate guy for the team, and boom, and that was really tough to see because that replay you could see that his Achilles just gave.
You could see it happen.
And it's
And this is where once again I know I've really hovered on like vibes or whatever, but this is where you have to give Brock Purdy for leading the team, Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, immense praise. I, as someone who doesn't personally know George Kittle, was like texting my dad, being like, "It's over." Like, you can't. There at a point, it has to be too much. They've lost every star. The emotional leader, like Fred Warner, is that emotional leader on the defense. Trent Williams talked about like when Nick Bosa went down, it wasn't right in front of everyone, so a lot of them didn't realize it happened till halftime. And obviously it's a big deal, but like he's a little bit quieter and everything. With Fred Warner, it happened on the field. He was laid out in front of them. They all saw it. And Trent Williams said it really like kind of sucked the air out of the stadium for them. And that unfortunately seemingly prepared them for then watching Kittle. And it was the same thing. The game stops. They're all, kneeling, praying for him, everything. And then they have to just go right back out there. And incredibly, I'm texting my dad, like, whatever happens after this, we can't expect. And bam, bam, the property throws down the field for like 20 yards or more than 20 yards to Demarcus Robinson. I think it was his longest pass of the day or longest catch of the day for Demarcus Robinson. So just huge credit to them. And then I don't know how you feel about this. They had 2 or 3 really good offensive possessions, and then it was 4th down, and they almost went for it on 4th down. They ended up, I think, calling a timeout or something, and then taking the points. And that was a little bit controversial. And at the time, and I could still maybe feel this way now. I don't have a clear conclusion. At the time, I wanted Kyle to go for it. I was like, in this game, you just need to be aggressive. At this point, you've lost everyone. Kind of like, I feel like I was in a like F it mentality, like just go for it. Like I just want, if you get it, it's going to feel so good. But what I didn't consider was maybe how defeating going for it and not getting it and then giving Philly the ball back right there would have been.
And giving them momentum.
Yes.
Which they lacked. And so I think that emotionally that was the right call by Kyle.
Yeah, because
you close out that. I'm sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
I'm just agreeing with you. Like, he did a good job at like to me, I was kind of like, oh, it feels like a killer to like take the points when you've like really kind of seemingly rallied after this like horrific incident. But I think like I was thinking like if you get it, it feels incredible. But the smarter plan, and the reason I'm not an NFL coach, was the air was just sucked out of the stadium. They had to very quickly rally. They get here. If it wouldn't have converted, it would have then been like, okay, game actually over. Like we just put our all into rallying and it didn't work. And I think the fact that they were like, okay, we're walking away from this drive with something. I think that gave them hope and kept the momentum, as you said, on their side instead of giving it back to Philly. So I just want to give a big credit to them. That
was a smart decision by Kyle. Yeah. I thought that you need to manage the game knowing how much time is left, and you need to manage the emotion of the game. And if they didn't get that first down, it powers the crowd and the team. And as you pointed out correctly, and as I shouted out in the article, you knew why Philly could lose this game. And you said it beforehand. It's the vibes. It's the pointing fingers at each other. It's doubting the offensive coordinator. It's doubting the play calling, doubting themselves. And that you needed to let Philly stew in their own juice. Yeah. And part of the way you do that is by kicking the field goal. Is that if you go for it and fail, you have just basically hit the hit the reset button for the Eagles, and that's the last thing you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really smart for Kyle, is that, I can see the argument that you need every point you can get. You need a touchdown, keep going. But Kyle knew that it was more important to not give Philly any life. And that's what he did. And it proved to be a good decision.
Yes, absolutely. I want to say bye, Papa J. Have fun at church. Nightmare on Main Street says, and thank you so much for tuning in, Papa. We'll see you next time. Love you. I didn't mean to be dismissive right there. And then Nightmare on Any Street says, hostile windy environment, take the points. It's funny because there was other games in wildcard weekend where, like, even the Bears game when they went for 2, and then went for it on 4th down twice and didn't get it either time. They ended up winning. But I was like, it's so much easier. All that to say, it's so much easier to be objective when it's not the team that you're rooting for. At this point, I was in full on rooting mode. And so I'm like, that's why I gave Kyle and Brock praise right there, is because to me they were making logical, non-emotional decisions, and I was just way past that. And I was also
You're a fan.
Way past it for myself, but I was like preemptively giving them credit for losing and being like, well, with everything that happened, it's going to be fine. And the fact that they didn't. Before we get on to Seattle, because we'll do that in 2 seconds, I want to say, even though Kyle didn't have a phone call today, George Kittle himself did post on Instagram 52 minutes ago, posted a picture of himself in the locker room, has a bottle of tequila, his leg is up, his wife is with him, posts a picture of himself and Kyle Shanahan hugging him, which, by the way, on theme of Kyle growing, I'm old enough to remember when Trey Lance broke his leg in half and Kyle Shanahan didn't look up from his play sheet. Not to bring up Trey, because I know that can get into a whole other thing. But there's been multiple injuries where it feels like Kyle is like, I am an offensive coordinator and I'm looking at my play sheet and I'm not affected by what's going on. And this year, I've given Kyle a lot of credit for the emotional element and being able to attune his team. And George Kittle went down, and maybe it's just George Kittle is such a pillar in Kyle Shanahan's tenure himself, not even just as a 49er, but as when you think of Kyle's era, you're going to think of George Kittle. But he did literally tear up and go and cry and hug George Kittle. But then in the comments, as the caption, George Kittle says, football sucks sometimes, but I love it. I love these guys and this team. I'm heartbroken, but I've felt so much love and support from everyone reaching out. I want you to know I'll be good. Thank you guys so much. And we, the 49ers, aren't done yet. Also, when your team owner is the first person to meet you in the locker room, you know you're in a special place and you feel taken care of. Cheers, all my love, and lots of healing to come. So that's the update straight from George Kittle, since we don't have one from Kyle. Like I said, we know it's the Achilles. Much like Fred Warner, I think he's going to attack it with everything he has. Obviously, this injury is a longer-term injury than Fred's, but both of those players not only have at specific times felt like the leaders of their sides of the football, but also, just true pros that they're not going to, they're not going to slack off in the rehab. They're going to be doing
Yeah, well, both of them are Hall of Famers and team leaders, and they continue to lead even if they can't play. Fred has been instrumental in firing them up. Kittle will do the same thing going forward. But give a lot of credit to Jed here that he was there to meet Kittle with his wife, Claire.
Yeah.
And then he asked George, anything you need? And he said, tequila.
Yeah.
And Jed goes, a 49er staffer brings tequila in for Kittle and they drink it. Yeah. And initially they're drinking it in sadness of losing George. And later they're drinking it in celebration of the
win. That's funny.
So that's a great thing. And I give Jed a lot of credit that contributes to the feeling of team and family when you do things like that. It's not every owner that would do something like that. And I give Jed credit for it. That was a very human touch by him. And I'm sure that Kittle appreciated it. And as you point out, it's also a sign of how Kyle has grown, that he's more of the leader of the family as opposed to the leader of the Cabo clique and then tear down the rest of the team last year. Yeah, as you pointed out, the culture change has been key, and part of the reason that they were able to overcome losing Kittle was all the losses that they've had during the year and learning from it, and that learning is in part due to Kyle. Gotta give him credit for that.
Absolutely. Julie, it was posted on George Kittle's Instagram, but I can take screenshots of it and put it on like my community tab post if you don't have Instagram. I didn't think about doing that, but I'll definitely do that for people who don't have Instagram. Okay. George Kittle is a good transition because the Seattle Seahawks, one of their weaknesses maybe would be tight ends. They don't seem to have any weaknesses. They're like the number one defense in the NFL right now. Arguably, maybe not even arguably. I have some stats.
It's the best defense in the league, I think. Seattle and Houston have the best defenses.
Oh, yeah.
You can argue that Houston's a better defense in that it's more impactful and that their front four is just unbelievable. Yeah. But those are the top two, and then there's the rest of the league.
These are some stats that I've written down, and you know, no one puts Demarcus Robinson balling out in the stat sheet. So I'm just saying, like, you take this for what it's worth. But for drop back EPA, for defensive drop back EPA, the Seahawks are fourth. For their defensive rush, they're first in the NFL. They are second ranked, right below Houston as a defense. And this is by PFF, where the 49ers, on the other hand, their rushing is 11th. They're third in drop back EPA with Brock Purdy, sixth if you include Mac Jones, but that doesn't really matter. What I take away from those numbers is the Seahawks are a damn good defense, and we don't really need those numbers to tell us that because we just saw that when they held the 49ers offense to 3 points just 2 weeks ago. One of the areas that the Seahawks might have a weakness in, if there was to be a weakness, would be tight ends. So it's definitely a struggle that the 49ers are missing George Kittle. A different thing that I had written is I think the Seahawks play a lot of zone because they're 28th in the league in playing man coverage. Another thing that sucks about George Kittle going down is he's one of the better guys on the team at facing man coverage. A lot of the guys that are available, Christian is good at beating man, but Jennings is not. Ricky Pearsall is, but is he ever going to play? I'm not sure. Kendrick Bourne is not good at all. Jake Tonjes, it's a limited sample size, but he's not as good as Kittle, obviously. Demarcus Robinson is the lowest on the team, even below Kendrick Bourne, and same with Kyle Juszczyk. So a lot of the bodies that they have left on offense seemingly don't play well against the Seahawks. Like, it feels like it's going to be a very, very favorable matchup. Looking ahead a little bit, what can the 49ers expect? I do think they're going to score more than 3 points.
They better.
But I will say, and I picked the Eagles to win and the 49ers won. I want the 49ers to win. I'd love to keep talking about football. This is a little spoiler, maybe a little bit early since it's Monday. But I think the Eagles I think the Seahawks are going to win. I think their defense is dominant. How did the 49ers match up? What are they even going to attempt to do, Tom?
Well, the first thing is the loss of Kittle is huge because the running game took off once Kittle got healthy. You know, the running game had low yards per carry throughout the season, and then it had a bump, and that bump was directly responsible to Kittle.
Yeah.
Not having him is gigantic.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? Austin Pleasance played in the game 2 weeks ago, and Kyle had to devote a lot of resources to Chip and give him help. Now you've got Trent there. You don't have to worry about it. And so Kyle can go back to being Kyle. He can call 5 guys out and scheme people up in routes, get people open. He can go back to what he's accustomed to doing. Part of the reason they only had 3 was Kyle was going against his instincts because he had to help Pleasance. Now he doesn't. That's the biggest change between the games, is having Trent at left tackle. And that is going to be where he's going to attack in the run game. That's going to be what he's going to do to try to get more players out because he has Trent. So that's a huge factor in the game. Now, can he successfully run left behind Trent? They're going to have to use Juwan Jennings as blocking help and see what else they can do. I think that Juwan's going to have to be used as more of a blocker in this game because they don't have Kittle. Yeah. And so I would look for them to try to have condensed formations and try to do what they can with Juwan as a blocker and try to set up Christian that way. But the problem is that Seattle's the top run defense. The Niners don't have Kittle.
Run game. They shut down the run game last week.
How? Right. And so that's the first challenge for Kyle is, how in the world do you run when your run game only worked when you had Kittle and Kittle's gone?
Yeah.
Now what? That's going to be really hard. And Kyle's just going to have to come up with something. My guess is that means a lot of runs left behind Trent and with Juwan Jennings helping out, and then sending Juszczyk behind them and seeing what they can do. So that's 1. 2 is, even though they don't have Kittle, we saw in the opener in Seattle when Kittle went down early, Jake Tonjes had a lot of success against Seahawks.
Yeah.
And so they're going to need to do that again. And Seattle really doesn't have a way to man up on Tonjes. But because Tonjes is slower than Kittle, now they can do a better job of covering the tight end as opposed to what George can do. That Reek Woolen had a bad game in that opener. He's played a lot better since. And so I don't think that they're going to be able to target him. And the problem for Kyle is that Seattle doesn't have a Blankenship. Seattle doesn't have this atrocious weakness where it's clearly this is the guy you can target and kill. Seattle doesn't have that. All 11 of their guys can really play.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. You know, even Worry doesn't necessarily have the ability to cover a tight end when he's as quick as Kittle, but he could if he has to defend Tonjes. So how do you get that done? Will Ricky Pearsall play? Probably not. Grant is saying that he doesn't think he will. And I trust Grant's opinion on this, being in the locker room and hearing what the players have to say at the podium. So if Pearsall doesn't play, how do you get this thing open? And part of it is Kyle is going to have to use the tendencies of the Seattle defense against themselves. Is it, how do you react to this play? Just like the Jennings touchdown was set up 2 plays prior, it's the sequencing of the game plan is going to be key in getting them to bite on stuff you want them to bite on, and then going against it and hitting them in the back end. Yeah. 2 of the touchdowns were back end plays, both the touchdown passes to McCaffrey. So Kyle's going to have to try that. And basically it's just, what can you get done? What Seattle did to have a lot of success in the game 2 weeks ago, they flooded middle, is that they played a very condensed defense between the numbers. And they just said, we're not going to let you get those in-breaking routes that you live on. Yeah. You're going to have to go outside. And Kyle needs to respond to that, is that you have to take the ball wider. You have to go outside the numbers and attack that way. Yeah. And you need to send Brock on controlled rollouts so he can see better. You know, part of the way that you avoid the interceptions is that you move Brock in a rolling pocket, so that he can see downfield and know when he can make a pass and when he can't, because he can't afford turnovers in this game. So I want to create viewing angles for Brock.
Yeah.
And part of that is rollouts. So that's another part of the game plan, is he's going to have to attack Seattle wide, in addition to trying to do what he can left, running the ball with behind Trent.
For what you were saying about Ricky Pearsall, Matt Mayoko said, and he said this late last night, like midnight, Ricky Pearsall was not close enough to even go through pregame, a pregame workout Sunday to determine if he could play. Kyle Shanahan said it'll be monitored if he is limited or DP, basically not even able to go in practice next week. So right now, the way Kyle's saying it is, it's to be determined if he's completely sitting out or half participating in practice, not like limited or full go. So they're definitely erring on he's more likely to not go than to go. But it would simply from just like more bodies on the field really help the 49ers if he could. So I'm still going to be hopeful, but not optimistic that
Yeah.
can be
Well,
out.
it's a PCL is tough to recover from, and you never really know until you try it out. So that's part of it. But part of it also is I don't think there's any chance that Pearsall is going to be close to 100. That even if he plays, he would only be a decoy, and Seattle would know that he's a decoy a couple plays in.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Nightmare's right. It's McDonald against Kyle is going to be quite the chess match. But McDonald has had the better of Kyle lately, so Kyle has to change it up. Part of what they ran into trouble with, part of what they had trouble with against Seattle 2 weeks ago was that they didn't have success early. That first and second down, they were getting shut down. And against Philadelphia, the same thing happened. The first 5 first downs that the Niners called against Philly, all runs, Christian McCaffrey averaged 1.4 yards per carry. Yeah. And without Kittle and against the Seattle defense, there's no way that you can go on first down and run the first 5 first downs of the game. So that's another thing that I'm going to expect Kyle to do is that he's going to have to throw on first or second down. You can't just keep running the ball because if you're third and long, Seattle's set up to stop you.
Yeah. And when I saw a great breakdown, it wasn't the 49ers guy. It was this guy. I've shouted him out before, Jackson Kruger Sports. He kind of talks about a lot of different football games, but he really dumbs it down. And he'll just show a couple plays, which is helpful for someone like me who's kind of still learning when it comes to like knowing exactly what I'm watching. But he was saying that in the most recent matchup with the Seahawks and the 49ers, that because they shut down the run game and because the 49ers weren't doing any explosive plays, the Seahawks, and what's interesting is Robert Saleh has kind of talked about trying to do this to other teams, but the Seahawks were doing it to the 49ers. They were like, okay, you can get 3 yards of play. And maybe if you never made a mistake, you'd go 3 yards, get the first down. 3 yards, get the first down. But what Mike McDonald is gambling on, and what Robert Saleh has explained to us when talking about other teams, is they don't think that you can do that every single drive for 4 hours and not make a mistake. Eventually, you're going to halt and you're going to have to punt the ball away. And if the other team can be explosive and you're living on 3-yard drives, they're going to outscore you. Them being able to shut down the run and hold the 49ers to no speed, no explosivity. I don't know if that's a word. Sometimes
explosiveness.
Yeah. I think the 49ers are going to have to incorporate some of what they did against the Eagles, where they were able to get some. I mean, Kyle, with the trick play, I know that was a Kubiak thing, but it was like a throw the kitchen sink at this game. Like it's a little bit of it is like know who you are. Like if you're the less talented team on paper, you might have to take some chances that you wouldn't maybe in other years feel comfortable taking. But it's like you're not going to just win the game running or passing for 3 yards every single drive. Like eventually you're going to have to do something that shakes them up a little bit. And so I think they're going to need even more of that in this upcoming.
They're going to need a way to get the ball downfield more than just what Seattle gives them.
And I like Seattle put it more out wide instead of into traffic.
Well, yeah, but Seattle is so quick and so good and so well coached that even when you go wide in its checkdowns, it's still a 2 to 3 yard checkdown because the Seahawks are there. They're that good. So part of what Brock is going to have to do is, remember that play where Brock rolled out and he hit Kittle going across the field for the 20-yard gain. That play against Seattle, they're going to need more of that.
Yeah.
Is that you've got to create a play. Is that if you just go back and do your standard stuff, Seattle's going to say, okay, we'll give you 3 yards. But if we get a good stop on the run, if we get a tackle for loss on a running play, or if we get a penalty on you, now what are you going to do? The Niners have to create from nothing. They've got to find a way to say, we're either going to sequence a play like they did with Philadelphia with the Jennings pass on the trick play, or they're going to have to sequence things in a way that they use Seattle's tendencies against them to hit them on the backside for a big play. But Kyle's going to have to create something. And this is where his creativity is going to be challenged to the max, is that you've got arguably the best defensive mind in football on the other side, and somebody that's had a lot of success recently against you and created four interceptions for Brock on Christmas a couple years ago with Baltimore. So it's McDonald can do a lot, and he knows exactly what Kyle does. It's why Seattle hired him, was specifically to be the Kyle killer. That's why they hired him.
That like his number one op is it's smart by the Seahawks to go, oh, you're really good at this, beating this guy that we have to see twice a year. Okay, come over here.
Right. It's how you win the division is by beating Kyle, and give Seattle credit that their ownership knew we have to find a Kyle killer, and they did.
Yeah.
And then they built an offense to kill him, and they did, and a defense, and they did. So it's just, that's an organizational win. That's ownership, GM, drafting, free agency. Everything's aligned to beat the Niners, and they're now in this position because of it. Credit to them.
We have a lot of comments that are kind of echoing what you're saying. Is Brock is going to need more visibility. They got to get him out of the pocket. A lot of people are suggesting rollouts, saying, screens, play action. Don't just, drop back and pass. Actually have some
play action's tough if you can't run.
Yeah.
That's going to be the issue. How do you run without Kittle against the best run defense in the league?
Yeah.
I don't know how Kyle does that. I really don't.
I think rolling Brock Purdy out to the side to give him some more visibility will be helpful. And then I wouldn't be mad. Brock Purdy had the scramble. I think I touched on it earlier at the stream. But I wouldn't be mad if they had a couple play calls that have Brock Purdy on the move, because that's an element like he can pull out, but he doesn't pull out often enough that I feel like opposing defenses spend a lot of time trying to defend it, because it doesn't happen frequently enough. So I wouldn't be mad at them getting Brock Purdy on the move a little bit as well, to try to, when you say, how do you run the ball a little bit? Okay, maybe, the run with Christian McCaffrey isn't working, but can you dial up, Brock Purdy running for the first down?
Maybe. Seattle has better coaching so that they can limit the quarterback run more than Philly can. So that's part of it. But you never know that if there's pursuit angles that create an opportunity for Brock to run, he will. And that's another part of the growth of Purdy, is that his decision-making as a runner continues to improve.
My only ask is that they don't throw the ball to Luke Farrell. They did that stupid bullshit one time in the Eagles game, and it didn't work. And I was like, why the hell did they do that? Don't do it. If you're going to throw to a tight end, make sure it's Tonjes. He's proven he can do it. Not some people are saying Garendo. They're not going to – I don't think they're going to pull out Garendo after all year of not playing him. Sorry.
Yeah. It would be amazing, though, is if they suddenly say, okay, now we're going to play Jordan James, Jordan Watkins, and Guerrero. And McDonald is saying, what? And they work.
Yeah.
But the point is, Kyle's going to have to do something different, because 2 weeks ago he got 3 points. You have to do things way differently. And I think that's going to have to factor into the game plan. He has to throw on first down. That's one. Two, he's got to use sequencing to use the Seattle tendencies against themselves. And three, he's just got to be creative, period. You got to pull everything out. Throw the kitchen sink, because you have to. And I think that Seattle is going to do the same thing, is that in the game 2 weeks ago, the Seahawks offensively were focused on just get the running game going.
Yeah.
And they were blowing the Niners off the ball. Part of the difference between then and now, the Niners were giving up 4.6 yards before contact against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago in the run game. Part of that was poor pursuit angles by the linebackers and poor fundamentals, that they weren't shedding blocks. One of the things that Kendricks and Wallow can do is shed blocks and make the tackle. And with Siegel, you've got more speed at safety to come in and make a play. So that kind of success probably won't be duplicated this time, at least not to that extent. I think the Niners will be faster. and more technically sound to stop the run. And I think that Clint Kubiak for Seattle is probably going to look to challenge the linebackers and safeties in the intermediate ranges to try to take advantage that way. Seattle looked to run a lot in that last game. I think that just as Kyle is going to shake things up, I think Kubiak will for the Seahawks too.
William is trying to trigger me by saying, "What about throwing to Farrell?" No, I am against that idea. I'd rather have.
Yeah, we're gonna throw to this guy that runs the 40 and next Tuesday. Let's see what he can do. Bad idea, guys.
But what I did want to say was, and we had some good comments that said Tonjes and Kyle Juszczyk have to step up with Kittle going down.
And
I think if he can have the same production as he did against the Eagles, that would be great. He's had a better year in general this year. And I think that's less to do with him and his ability and more just how they've utilized him this year. But yeah, he's definitely going to have to get involved as a blocker, as a pass catcher. Just there's a lot of, because George Kittle is kind of a do-it-all guy, when you lose him, it feels like you're losing more than just one position almost. So
you are
definitely having him, having everyone on that offense filling in those gaps. There's a Monday night game that's happening, I think, about right now. Texans, Steelers. Can we do a score prediction for the Seahawks and 49ers game, and then a score prediction for tonight?
Okay.
If you want.
I would think that
tonight on
Seattle will have more scoring success than they did a couple weeks ago. So I would think it's like 24-20 Seattle would be my score prediction.
Okay.
And I think that it's just Mike McDonald has too many answers on defense for the Niners to win.
I think that's.
But the Niners can win. It's just that they're going to have to coach up a win. Kyle is going to have to come up with something phenomenal. And if anybody can, Kyle can. So let's see. And we've seen the vibes and the unity on this team where they play above their talent because of the coaching.
Yeah. They absolutely play better than they should on paper. This is a prediction that I absolutely hope is wrong. And I'm going to stream multiple times before the game, so I might literally change it. But the score that I'm coming up with right now is 20-28 Seahawks win. Okay. I think the offense is going to do much better than it did last 2 weeks ago against the people. Don't like that. I think the offense is going to do much better than it did with the 3 points, but this defense is just killer. And the 49ers are, they're down so many players. I really hope I'm wrong. I'd also like to say I picked against them last week and they won. So anyone who's mad at me, maybe I'm doing some reverse jinxing over here. Okay. So let's be nice to Ashley. I'm just trying to say how it is on paper. I'm not saying what I want to happen. I obviously want them to win.
Sure.
So I think, I think the 49ers, maybe 28 to 20. You said 20-24?
I said 24-20 Seattle.
Okay. Maybe 28's too much. This defense, Robert Saleh's really worked magic. And the addition by subtraction of having Siegel, Kendricks, and Wallow out there, maybe they're, a much more impressive defense than they've been all year. So I would love that. I don't know. Now I'm taking back my prediction. Maybe I'll put
you can do whatever.
Okay,
it's your channel. It's your show. You can just say that for now you're saying this because on paper Seattle should win. I'm just saying that McDonald has proven that he's got the better of Kyle, and I think that their defensive personnel is going to make it really hard for the Niners to win.
Yeah.
I don't think they do, but then I didn't think they were going to beat Philly either. And then Kevin Patullo showed up and said, "I'm here with my ice cream truck, and here's this vanilla." And Robert Saleh said, "Thank you very much," and the Niners win. But Seattle isn't that dumb. They're a well-coached team. So, we'll see how things go. But, don't worry about Ashley making a pick now. She can change it later, and that's her right.
Okay.
And she's a fan. She's proven her bona fides as a fan of this team.
I want to steal Tom's, and I want to say I think the 49, I think it'll be 24-20. I like that one.
Okay.
I'm thinking about like the amount of touchdowns and field goals and stuff. But once again, I hope all these predictions are 100% wrong and the 49ers win. I think it'll be a much closer game than a week ago. There is a benefit of the 49ers having just played them, but it's going to be difficult. It's at Seattle, although I think Seattle's been better on the road this year, which is a kind of weird stat.
They are. Yeah.
But
they're 14-2 under McDonald on the road. Pretty amazing. They're not as good at home at Lumen. I don't know why.
Yeah. Right now, I'm going to give Seattle the slight edge just because I do think on paper they're the better team and their defense. I do think one of the ways that the 49ers have to win is being able to outscore the opposing team. And I just think the Seahawks have a really good defense. Now, the Eagles had a really good defense too. Not as good as Seattle's, but for what I will say, if Brock Purdy turns the ball over 2 times, they lose the game. I don't think he can pull that off again. One turnover, maybe. I'm mostly because maybe Sam Darnold also turns the ball over 1 time.
That could be.
I don't think it can be a 2 to. I don't think that it can be a repeat because someone was saying they were talking about unity, which is something I've made a big deal, and overcoming adversity, which the 49ers have done and the Eagles had not done. I want to give the Seahawks more credit than the Eagles. Like Sam Darnold has had a lot of doubters. There was that Rams game that he played horrific in, and he's been able to come back. Even in that Week 18 game, going into it, all the national storylines were about the 49ers. Not necessarily that everyone was picking them to win, but it was like that was the story. Like people have just overlooked the Seahawks, maybe because a lot of people don't believe in Darnold. But I do think that they've kind of had to face if you're comparing not the 49ers, but the Seahawks and the Eagles, I think the Seahawks are a more together team and less likely to turn on each other and crumble in the way that the Eagles did. I think they have a little that unity that the 49ers have. I'm not saying it's at the same
level. They do. Well, they're well coached and they're young and they're in ascendancy.
Yeah.
Part of the problem for Philly is and I said in the article.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right. But I said in the article that Philly, as a defending champion, took on the mindset of team light switch, that they thought that they could flip a switch and take their execution up. And that's not the way it works in sports. And that's a danger that Philly faced, but not one that Seattle has because they're too young. They haven't done anything yet. They're hunting for success. And that changes the mindset entirely. And they're much better coached. And they've got players who aren't divas. They've got players that are in it for each other like the Niners. So that's not going to be a way that the Niners can win. They can't duplicate Philly's toxic culture to get a win. Seattle doesn't think that way. They don't act that way. Yeah. Darnold is a weakness for them. He can turn the ball over. I think that what's kind of overlooked is people will say, well, the Niners don't have a pass rush, so he won't get picked. Darnold can still lose the ball and fumbling, and he almost did in the game 2 weeks ago. And so I think that if there's a turnover, that's part of it.
That's exciting. Tom, when you said, because I read a chat and someone was like, I hope Brock doesn't turn the ball over and Sam Darnold does. And literally I read that and I didn't even read it out loud, but in my head I was like, our defense doesn't get turnovers. And then immediately Tom was like you almost knew the narrative I had in my head. And Sam Darnold, even without our defense causing it, can still put the ball in harm's way. So, we can hope for luck and stuff like that in those smaller situations. But yeah, I think I hope it'll be a good game. The wild card weekend, all the games were fantastic. Maybe aside from the very last one was less exciting. But I hope the 49ers season continues. And it was really fun to talk about such the Eagles collapse. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't fired multiple people on their staff yet. And that's the one reason that I'm giving the Seahawks an even better chance is because like the Eagles, they are better than the 49ers on paper. But unlike the Eagles, I think they have a more collective mindset. And they're not going to turn on each other if it starts to look bad. Like a big part of my strategy was like, go up first and start causing chaos for them. I don't think the Seahawks will start turning on each other and spiraling the way that I predicted the Eagles would. But
no, if the Niners win this game, it's on execution, as opposed to culture.
Yeah. The Seahawks, unfortunately, have it. I think they've been building a good culture, so it's going to be actually about what you can do on the field. Anyways, I love you guys so much. I'm rooting for the Texans. I like Mike Tomlin, but I don't like Aaron Rodgers, and I'm a hater of Aaron Rodgers, and that's really the only reason why. I don't think it affects the Niners at all. Although I guess, like, if in some weird way, once again, I mean, I just picked the Seahawks to win, but if one of these AFC teams were to end up being the team that was in the Super Bowl, I think you'd probably rather face the Steelers because the Texans have the better defense, but I'm thinking week to week, not multiple weeks ahead. And because I'm thinking week to week, I want the Texans to win this week.
The entire AFC is rooting for Houston to lose because they don't want to play that defense. Yeah. I don't blame them, but I am rooting for Houston in this one. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan either. And I think that, and I'm also rooting for D'Amico. So we'll see how the Texans do, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I love you guys so much. We had so many people in and out of the comments. So I really, really appreciate that. Tom and I were excited about this game that's happening. So that's why we moved it up to today. But lots more football to talk about very soon. And I always really appreciate Tom giving me his wisdom. As I mentioned at the very start, I was really excited. Tom did not give me the hint, but I got a little shout out in his article today, and that was really exciting. So a full breakdown.
Well earned.
A full breakdown of the game that just happened, and a lot of what we talked about in a more succinct and higher calibrated fashion is written in Tom's article that he put out today. Check that out on SI, on Niners on
Ninercast on Twitter.
I just had a stroke. But to be fair, and this is TMI, I've had to pee for like 20 minutes. So I think that has started my words no longer work. Go follow Tom on Twitter. I also reposted the article on my Twitter.
Thanks
so
for that.
Get it there. But I always really appreciate Tom. Someone was giving Kubiak a shout out in the comments. So love this team. Excited to see what happens. My prayers go up for George Kittle, and we'll have more updates to come. Because it's a Saturday, it might be tomorrow or it might be Wednesday. Like I said, normally there's a call on Monday and then Tuesday's off, but there wasn't a call today. And I assume that they might have to practice tomorrow since it's a short week. For them, it's going to be like their Wednesday tomorrow. So if that's the case, I'll give an injury report after that tomorrow. Love you guys so much, and go Texans momentarily. Bye.